This? Don't worry.
Good evening. We're going to sing a song that has really been meaningful to me. It's an old hymn um, that I didn't like when I was young, and now it has become very precious to me through my experience. It's based on Psalm 23. My shepherd will supply my need. Jehovah is his name. In pastures fresh, he makes me feed beside the living stream. He brings my wandering spirit back when I forsake his ways, and leads me for his mercy's sake in paths of truth and grace. When I walk through the shades of death, thy presence is my stay. O word of thy supporting breath drives all my fears away. Thy hand inside of all my foes doth still my table spread. My cup with blessings overflows. Thine oil anoints my head. The sure provisions of my God attend me all
Thank you, Matt and Josie. Beautiful music. Thank you so much. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Um, see a lot of faces here. We're really happy to have you. How many of you were here last year? Okay, we've got a quite number. How many were, this is your first year? Wow, that's amazing. Wow, welcome everyone. And I want to encourage all of you to, if you can, try to come earlier in the day. We've got some really great messages. For those of you who haven't been here, how many of you were here for the 3:30 lecture? Okay, cool. How many who were at the 3:30 lecture recommend that those that weren't at the 3:30 lecture to come tomorrow? Okay, good. Okay. Yep. So, anyways, tonight we're gonna hear from Barbara again. She's a good friend of mine. We're so happy to have her here. We're so blessed in North Carolina, in this small little town, to have this woman fly all the way over here from Australia just to spend a few evenings with us. So I hope we all can be blessed, as I know we will. So with that, welcome, Barbara.
Thank you and welcome. Welcome everyone. And where am I? Here I am. So it's great to be here. I love it when I'm in venues that are out in the bush, out in nature. I was at a beautiful venue last week. I was in Trump Turnberry. That was very, very fancy. But what was very nice is I was overlooking the Scottish Sea. That was very nice. So today I'm going to be talking about, once again, this incredible body that we live in, its inbuilt ability to heal itself, and how it will heal itself when it's given the right condition. That is the way God designed the body. He designed the body with an inbuilt ability to heal itself. And one of the reasons that many people aren't experiencing optimum health today is because we have not been trained aright. So when I was a child, if I got a cold and got a cough, I was taken to the doctor. And the doctor gave some cherry-flavoured medicine, and I would take that a few times a day, and in a week I'd be better. But you know what I did not realise? That if I hadn't taken the medicine, I'd still get better. Did everyone hear that? You still get better. And then when my mother got really sick, she had rheumatoid arthritis over 6 years, they poisoned her, they burnt her, they cut her, till eventually she was a cripple in a wheelchair, deformed. And then she died at the age of 51. But do you know that I don't know whether you'd call it a spell or the blindness was so great that we still thought they did the best they could. And I see it now. I see people who've been burnt and cut and poisoned and then told, oh, we can't do any more for you. Because we have forgotten that the body can heal itself. It has an inbuilt ability to heal. I was in Transylvania, Romania, a year ago. Way up in the hills. It was incredible. 500 people came way out in the hills. They got a big marquee. And a lady came to me. And it was up in the hills, so there's hardly any flat ground. And this lady was hunched over like this, and she had a walking stick, and she's walking like this. As she got close, her face was puffy, and as she got closer, I could see this was a young woman. And I looked at her and she said, I've been on so much medication, I've had a stem cell transplant. She said, after I received the COVID vaccine, she said 6 months later I was diagnosed with lymphoma. She said she's on heavy medication. She said, I just stay at home. She's 30. She said, I don't see anyone. And I started to watch your lectures and I heard you say something. You said the body's designed to heal itself. She said, for the first time in years, I had hope. She said, I held on to that statement. And when I heard that you were going to be in Transylvania, I had to come and see you. She said, will you pray for me? I prayed for her. I prayed that God would guide her, that God would bless her journey. We took a photo together. She had tears in her eyes. She got the book Sustain Me. A month ago, I was in Transylvania again. I was giving lectures in a different area. It was a big hotel with a big conference room this time. And on the second night, a lady came up to me and I looked at her face and I saw recognition. But there was something different. This woman was fit, no puffiness. She leaped up on the stage. She was slim and fit. She said, do you remember me? I said, I do. They had only given her so long to live. And here she was, totally healed. What an incredible body we live in. Incredible. Even after all she'd been through, even though she'd been severely poisoned. And yet, the doctors who were doing this think they're doing the best. Would you call it a blindness? And a blindness that we, the public, go to them. Have the tests. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Selling of Sickness, how the tests are creating the illness. And now there's an illness, there's a drug. One lady said, I'm so concerned. She said, I've got a little 3-centimetre cyst on my kidney. She said, the doctor said it may turn to cancer. I'm so worried. I said, forget about it. I said, I don't believe that. I said, I've probably got a cyst on my kidney, but I will never know because I will never have the test. Got that? So how do you know if there's something wrong? Who'll tell you? This body. This body will tell you. But don't you have yearly blood tests? Never. Going to have a test. Right? Did you hear that? Because I live in a body, you live in a body that has the ability to heal itself when it's given the right conditions. One of the things that can cause problems is imbalance, because the body runs according to precision balance. Precision balance. And one of the imbalances that is causing major problems today is the imbalance in hormones. Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. In other words, there's always a cause. So what causes this imbalance? What I'm going to do this afternoon is I'm going to list some of the symptoms of the imbalance. I'm going to show you how the hormones work. Then I'm going to show you what throws it out. Then I'm going to show you how to bring it back into balance. How long have we got? What are some of the symptoms? For a female, it can be very early periods. You know, normal is 16 to 18. We're getting girls getting their periods at 9 years of age. There's something terribly wrong. And sorry, you can't blame the genes. You know how much they're applying to genes today? 5%. Got that? Sorry, you cannot blame them. Genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. I've been born with a strong gene pool to rheumatoid arthritis, but you've probably noticed I don't have it. I'm not in a wheelchair and I'm not dead. And I'm way over 51. Because genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. It's like the fat lady taking the fat dog for a walk. You can't blame genetics for that. So very heavy periods, very painful periods. Let's go a little bit more serious. Endometriosis, fibroids in the uterus, cyst syndrome, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, thyroid problems, osteoporosis. We're looking at bones later in the week. These can all be the result of a hormonal imbalance. Also depression. What about in a man? For a man, it can be low sperm count. It can be penile dysfunction. It also can be prostate problems. You see, men and hormones. In fact, when I was in Transylvania about to give the lecture on hormones, a very tall man came. He looked like he was about 50, about 6'6". He came up to me before the lecture and he said, "Do men have hormones?" I said, "They do." He said, "I'm coming." And I was very glad he did. Because it's important to understand why. And Proverbs 14 verse 6 states that knowledge is easy to him that understands. It is my aim to give you an understanding of the hormones. Then you automatically have the knowledge on what they need. And look what our hormones are made from. Cholesterol. Cholesterol is a very important lipid in the human body. I've got a lot of books in my library at home about cholesterol. The Great Cholesterol Con, The Great Cholesterol Deception, The Great Cholesterol Hoax, The Great Cholesterol Lie. Do you need any more? These are written by doctors all over the world. It's a scam. It's a total scam. And the side effect of cholesterol-lowering medication is Alzheimer's, dementia, muscle wasting, memory loss. They've just added another one, breast cancer, because our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. So the cause of hormonal imbalance could very well be not enough cholesterol. What's a good cholesterol level? Oh, about 300. Did you hear that? 300. You get down to 150, your brain's not going to work well. You're not going to be able to make vitamin D because vitamin D is made from cholesterol, and you're not going to be able to make your hormones. And you know what the Framingham Heart Study showed? People with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Do you need a moment's silence to digest that one? From cholesterol, our body makes pregnenolone, and from pregnenolone, a very important hormone is made. It's called progesterone. And progesterone is called mother hormone. And the reason why progesterone is called mother hormone is because the daughters come from progesterone. What are the daughters? That's estrogen. And the son comes from progesterone. That's testosterone. Ladies and men all have the same hormones, they're just in slightly different amounts. But also from progesterone, the adrenal hormones are made. They're your fight and your flight hormones. And I'm going to take you through the monthly cycle, and I'm going to explain it like a dance, because it is like a dance, because different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. And it's a 28-day cycle or dance. And the two main players in this monthly cycle or monthly dance is progesterone, and progesterone is going to be wearing a green outfit, and one of progesterone's roles is that of a happy hormone. We've got a saying in Australia, not every lady likes it. It's happy wife, happy life. There are some unhappy homes because the mother is lacking progesterone, and we'll look at why that would be in a minute. The other player in this monthly cycle is estrogen. And one of estrogen's main roles in the body is that of a cell proliferator. And cell proliferator basically means causes massive cell growth. And it's estrogen that causes the skinny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if estrogen levels remain high, the beautiful, shapely woman can get out of shape the other way. I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. Day 1 of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. And day 1 of the monthly cycle, progesterone levels are low. So progesterone is backstage, so to speak. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, when a woman's menstruating, estrogen is also low. But by day 7, we've got a rise. So this second week of the month, estrogen becomes the star player in the monthly dance. Let's go to the stage where the dance is played out, which is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. This is the uterus, this is the cervix, this is the birth canal. These are the fallopian tubes that come out of the top of the uterus, and here are the ovaries that are connected by a ligament to the uterus. So at this time of the month, with this rise in estrogen, as a cell proliferator, estrogen is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus. Once again, building up the blood test, the blood nest. Because remember, the first week, the blood nest came away. But the second week, with this rise in estrogen, it is causing the blood nest to once again build up. Also, estrogen is causing eggs to fully develop in the ovaries. Estrogen also causes the release of a form of lubricant in the birth canal. So around day 14, might be day 15, might be day 13 with some women, a fully developed egg births forth from the ovaries. And then the filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull up the egg, and the egg goes up in the fallopian tubes. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister. And that blister is called corpus luteum. Now I have written it in green because corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because when she ovulates every month, corpus luteum develops. Then when corpus luteum develops every month, that maintains mother hormone, it maintains progesterone. So what's now happening with the development of corpus luteum is around the time of development, we now have a rise in progesterone. At the same time, estrogen is given the message, it can go backstage. We've got our blood nest, we've got our eggs, we've got our lubricant. So on this third week of the monthly cycle, the monthly dance, we've got a rise in progesterone. So what effect does this rise in progesterone have? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus. I liken progesterone to the plasterers and the painters putting the finishing touches on the uterus. Progesterone also heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month, being happy hormone, to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect, and that is on the cervix. So this little gateway from the birth canal into the uterus. It's like a soft little cushion with a hole in the middle. So let me draw it from sideways. From sideways it looks like this with this little mucus plug in there, but under the action of progesterone at this third week, the sides come up a little tighter and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix. And this cervix is designed specifically to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. Did you know that between 2 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? It's the smallest cell in the human body, and sometimes up to half comes straight back out. And so we're left with half. Well, if it was 500 million, we've still got 250 million. Now, if they meet this cervix, difficult to gain entry, but they're so small, usually a few do, but if they meet this cervix with the progesterone lubricant, it literally grabs the sperm and shoots it up. Anne's got a long journey, long way to go. Some of them go down the wrong road, they die and get taken back into the body and eliminated, but some go down the right road and aha, they found their prize. The coating of the egg looks like this, and the sperm has to nudge its way in. I was reading recently that they've discovered that the egg chooses the sperm. It says, no, I don't think I'll have that one. I think I'll have that one. And when that sperm enters, all those other little folds shut tight and a chemical's released to kill off any other sperm that might try and gain entry. Isn't it incredible what they know about the human body today? I'm wondering if one of my helpers can find a rubber for me. And so at this time of the month, with the release of progesterone and the increase in lubricant, aiding the sperm up into the uterus, what happens if conception takes place? If conception takes place, then progesterone soars 200%. And there are 3 estrogens, and one estrogen is a more delicate estrogen. And that is the estrogen that rises in pregnancy. The other 2 estrogen, one's estradiol and one's estrone, they have strong cell proliferator action. But estriol is the delicate estrogen, and that's the one that rises in pregnancy. Ah, thank you very much. Thank you. Just a comment on sperm for a moment. Did you know that when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property? You see, when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back the immune system so sperm survives. Otherwise, none of us would be here. The more medicine understands about the human body, the more incredible it is. In Psalm 139, verse 14, the psalmist says, I will praise you, I'm fearfully, wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And he didn't know these intricacies of what I'm sharing with you. But woman's body has memory, and every time her husband's sperm enters her, her immune system rises to attack, and then it says, oh, it's husband, we'll just stand back. And sperm goes through. But can you imagine how damaging it can be if a woman has multiple partners? And also how damaging it can be in the area of anal sex. So what happens if there is no conception? If there's no conception by day 26, progesterone levels drop down, or go backstage, so to speak. By day 26, then estrogen levels drop right down. And when both of those levels drop right down, blood supply to the uterus is cut. And when blood supply to the uterus is cut, then the blood nest comes away, and we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what it should look like. Unfortunately today, it doesn't often look like that. So why? Because remember, there's always a reason. Well, it began about 1957. The first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. And so the pill was introduced. What is the pill? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. This Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And in a laboratory, diosgenin can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has an identical molecular structure to the progesterone that the body makes. But the pharmaceutical company can't patent that. They can only patent something new. So they add a few more atoms to one area and they came up with a synthetic estrogen. And it's this synthetic estrogen that was originally in the pill. But the problem with this synthetic estrogen, it's causing a rise in estrogen levels, and estrogen is a cell proliferator. And they started to notice women were beginning to show endometriosis. What's endometriosis? Too much endometrium, that's the lining of the uterus, too much endometrium, it starts to wander all through the abdominal wall. And then at this time of the month, when the bloodness comes away, these all bleed, but they've got nowhere to go. And that causes the woman to experience excruciating pain. And so by the 1990s, late 80s probably more, they had to do something. So they added a few more atoms in another area and came up with a synthetic progesterone. So has that fixed everything? No, because now this synthetic progesterone competes with our progesterone on the receptor side. So let's have a look at how the pill works. So how the pill works is these synthetic hormones are fed into this biochemical pathway that the body uses to make its hormones, and there's a disruption. And the body thinks, what's happening? Must be pregnant. And because the body thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. And if the egg's not released, corpus luteum's not being made. And so week after week, after month, after year, estrogen levels are starting to rise. And we've got a problem, sadly too common today, called estrogen dominance. But when there's no egg release, there's no corpus luteum made. So where's progesterone going? Down here. So estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, now causing, yes, endometriosis, growths called fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries, growths all through the reproductive organs, to the point of even cervical cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. But also in the breast. These are the lumps in the breast. These are calcified deposits. This is breast cancer. And this high estrogen opposes thyroid function. How many women are on the pill in their 20s and now they're in their 50s and they've just been diagnosed with underactive thyroid or overactive thyroid, which is Graves' disease, or Hashimoto's disease, whatever it is? Because this high estrogen opposes thyroid function. Because you can't just catch disease. Got that? That defies reason. That defies Newton's third law of motion, that to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. There is always a cause. And how many women were on the pill in their 20s and now they're in their 50s? Oh, they've just been diagnosed with depression. And as we looked at yesterday, you can't catch depression. You can't just get depression. There is a reason. And one of the reasons could quite possibly be the pill that was taken way back 20, 30 years ago. Here's something else that's being affected. Progesterone stimulates the release of osteoblast cells. What are osteoblast cells? Osteoblast means new bone. Osteo's bone, blast is new. So the osteoblast cells are causing new bone. Whereas estrogen, it stimulates the release of osteoclast. What's osteoclast? Taking away of old bone. Now, in this first illustration, they work beautifully together. So this time of the month, the osteoclast cells are released, taking away old bone, and then near the end of the month, with this rise in progesterone, the new cells are replacing the old cells. But with the new scenario, with this high estrogen and low progesterone, too much old cells are being taken away and there's not enough new ones to replace them. What's that called? Osteoporosis. Oh, and they've got a drug to help you for osteoporosis. It's called Fosamax. Do you know what the side effect of Fosamax is? The jawbone starts to break down. Interested? Drugs never cure disease. They just change the form and location. They just mask the symptoms. They never cure. And so, osteoporosis, there's another one that can simply be caused by this hormonal imbalance. So the woman's been on the pill maybe 5, 7 years before she had her baby. And now she's going through menopause. What are we, 30 years later? How is she faring? Terrible. She's got hot flushes. What's that? That's one of the results of this high estrogen, hot flushes, night sweats. The husband knows all the blankets get thrown off in the middle of the night and then they get pulled back on again. Another one is weight gain. When estrogen is high, it's almost impossible to lose weight. The lady's just been diagnosed with osteoporosis and thyroid problems, depression. And the pharmaceutical company's got a drug for them all. Have you noticed? But the drugs never cure. They might initially mask, but they never cure. And she goes to the doctor. She said, I can hardly function with these hot flushes. So what does he put her on? Oh, he's got another drug. I believe most I believe that doctors have to stop putting so much trust in it. So HIV was more simple. Now the body thinks it's pregnant, but there's more synthetic hormones coming in. So I was putting its images to the hot flushes and it's the breast. 6 years later, the latest model. Dr. Thyroid and Hormones. Why? He knows. And he said, well, why do you do this? She lost the right ball. She was perfect. What I'm going to show you is if the world not every woman will get breast cancer. And that's all of this. Very fortunate. Some of the organs working about on my birthdays, then coming as Whereas drugs are like low if children if chicken is violence against the law but that's the any kind of I was watching the rock on then tell us when to stop so it's not interrupting and you put the race farmers and the different that's the Marcella? Oh, yes. Please, watching possible get away from that. The fast bottles, the stainless steel ones, when thirst is hot, let go the suit in ones. They're all little things, but little by little, like the dripping one stone. The dripping journeys. It's not the odd day you do it, it's not the odd day you don't. What you do every day is the not only plastics, herbicides, insecticides. If you eat potatoes that are not organic, they will have glyphosate. And glyphosate kills the weeds by acting on the hormones. And there are some countries. For some people, it's all of it. For some people, it's just the pill. For some people, it's just the plastic. So that's why you're the doctor. That's why your history and your exposure tells you certain things. Now, something else is coming into the equation. This is the silent killer. This is the electromagnetic killer. We had a young man, only 35, get testicular cancer. For the last 10 years, he drives his little sports car with his laptop on his lap. The worst place to put your laptop is on your lap. Protect the family jewels. Men and women. I was reading a report about our young girls in their adolescence, teen years, laptop on the lap, and then in their 30s, 46% miscarried in those girls that had that laptop on the lap. One lady said to me, yeah, but my little boy loves putting the laptop on his lap. I said, oh, it's real easy. If he wants it on his lap, he doesn't get it. Real easy. He wants to play with it, he puts it on the bench. The best way to train children is cause and effect. There's a consequence. What about soy? Let me give you the story on soy. Here are 3 cells. Here are 3 estrogen receptor sites. This one is the xenoestrogens, the estrogen mimickers coming from plastics, chemicals, herbicides, insecticides. It's 20,000 times stronger than the human estrogen, so it's big. So how big's the human estrogen? The human estrogen just sits very nicely into the receptor site like that, but the human estrogen is 20,000 times stronger than plant. So how big's the plant? Just a tiny little slip of the thing that just lines the receptor site. And remember Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. When these plant estrogens come to the receptor site on the cell, they knock. They say, excuse me, do you need me? And the cell says, no. So it just sits at the door. And now it plays a protective role, protecting that cell from that harmful estrogen mimicker. And when I say estrogen mimicker, in their molecular structure, they've got a phenyl ring. And estrogen has that phenyl ring. It's the key that unlocks the door to get into the cell. They just come straight in. But if the plant estrogen knocks at the door and the cell says, oh yes, we do need you, it comes in. So where do you get your plant estrogens? From soy. But be careful of the soybean, because the soybean grown predominantly in America today is called Roundup Ready. It's been genetically modified to resist Roundup. First problem, it's been genetically modified. Second problem, and a farmer told me this a few years ago, he said, the field is spread times before that's why doses of Roundup. That soybean will affect breast cancer. That soybean will affect prostate cancer, because that soybean is high xenoestrogen. Big amount. 400,000 times stronger than the delicate plant. And I do know genetically modified and grown herbicides, insecticides. Do I eat soy? I do sometimes, but only organic. So how can we turn this around? Number 1, eliminate. Don't use in a corner. So eliminate the pit. Babies popping up everywhere. I taught my daughters natural birth control. So I've got 3 daughters that all have families, and each one of them chose when she's okay. It's as simple as a woman taking temperature before she gets out of bed every day and charting it, and she will find it'll do this. It'll drop and go up onto a higher plane over the month. That drop and up onto a higher plane is her body letting her know she's begun to ovulate. And it'll usually happen around day 14. With some women it might be day 13, with some women it may be day 15. And you say, I've got to do that every day for the rest of my life? No. No. Usually in a couple of months, a lady now that she's watching and observing her body, she gets to learn. Yes. So she might only have to take the temperature for a couple of months. That's one sign. Second sign is the cervix changes. And it's as simple as a lady testing her cervix every day. At first, she's got nothing to compare it to, but as the days and the weeks go by, she starts to see the changes and she monitors that. The third sign is that her lubricant in her birth canal changes. When estrogen's high, it's white and thick. But when progesterone level's high, it's clear and stringy and quite profuse. In my book, Sustain Me, I've got a chapter on women's health, and there's a QR code that you can take a photo of and you can get a chart. You can print the chart, and it's a monthly chart. But as I said to you, my daughters have told me at first they diligently monitored all the signs, but after a few months they just get to know it. And what women will find mostly that it's this third week that they are ovulating. So they can say to their husband, I'm safe, I'm not safe on that third week, I'm safe on the fourth week. And when the lady's not safe, that's when the man will either master the art of withdrawal or he'll wear a condom. And I read an article about how the Italian men prided themselves on not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because I know in Australia the woman takes the pill, or the woman has her tubes tied, or the woman has an IUD. Well, men are offered vasectomy. And when Michael and I married, we're in our early 40s. This was nearly 30 years ago now. Michael said to me, do you want any more children? I had 6, he had 2. I said, I think we've got enough. He said, well, should I have a vasectomy? I said, no. They still do not know how many men that had vasectomies by the time they're in their 60s are showing prostate problems. And how many women who had their tubes tied eventually end up having to have a hysterectomy. I don't agree with cutting tubes. I don't agree with cutting body parts out either, unless, of course, the fibroid's blocking the colon. You might need to have the fibroid cut out, but let's prevent it even getting to that. So eliminate the pill, eliminate RHT, eliminate meat and its product. If you like meat and its products, must be organic. I do not believe it's safe today to have it any other way, but I choose to eat plants. Oh, it's nice for the sun to just light up the part of board that I'm talking about. Plastic, I think it's impossible to totally eliminate plastic, but as much as you can. Go for natural fibre against the body. I go to great lengths to make sure that what's touching my body is only natural fabrics. My friend from Andlib just gave me this silk blouse. It's very nice when the gift is silk, because I think silk can be a little expensive. But they're natural fabrics. So you know that, in fact, the amazing thing about silk is when it's hot, it has a cooling effect, and when it's cold, it has a warming effect. That's what the natural fabrics do. They work with the body. So I was in Scotland last week, and one of my bodyguards, or security guards, he's an ex-Marine, and he said, do you know that the Marines all have woolen underwear now? It's really fine woolen underwear because they discovered it breathes, and when they're climbing mountains and getting hot and sweaty, they don't chill with the woolen underwear, and it dries so much quicker. Because I know myself, because in Australia we have clotheslines. Do you remember them? Anyone here remember them? Seems like a lot of people in America don't have them. But I love drying my clothes in the sun. And if I put a woolen jumper on the line and a cotton jumper, the woolen jumper will dry in half the time. So they've discovered, the Marines, that the woolen underwear is the very best. They don't chill, it dries very quickly. They even found that they could wear it for a few weeks without washing it. Maybe it stands up by itself in the at the end of those 2 weeks. But of course, these are guys in extreme conditions. So I was very pleased to hear that, because I was alarmed in Ireland and Scotland. The sheep farmers are burning their wool because everyone's buying polyester. Someone has made a fortune out of polyester. There's no polyester in my home. In our health retreat, the quilts are feather or they're wool. One lady came running up to me and said, "How can I stop the farmers burning their wool?" I said, "Buy wool. Buy wool." And the back of the sheep, that wool is used for the coats because it's prickly. But the neck of the wool is very soft, and that's the wool they use for the products that touch the skin. And you can get some very nice long johns, underwear made out of very fine wool. So get those chemicals out of the home. Also, it's time to look at what's under your kitchen cupboard, what's in your laundry cupboard. You know what's in my laundry cupboard? Sodium bicarbonate, white vinegar, a little bottle of eucalyptus oil, and some biodegradable laundry detergent. Do you know you'll have so much room in your laundry cupboard? So I stay in a lot of Airbnbs and, whoa, what's in there? Nasty. I shut the door very quickly. I'll tell you what was really nasty in the one I'm staying with, those chemical air fresheners. Tell you what, that's a total lie. Air freshener, air poisoners is what they should be called. So I got rid of them as quickly as possible and got my essential oils and wiped all around to get that really bad smell, and opened all the windows wide, but in the middle of the night, mosquitoes. See, in Australia we have screens on, but I think in America a lot of people don't even open their windows. Anyway, the good news is I put essential oils around my head and they stopped buzzing me. Eliminate anything that could be contributing to the disruption of the hormones. Number 2, the liver can detoxify us from environmental poisons, and the liver can help to eliminate excess estrogen. And it does it down one of 2 pathways, and what stimulates the pathway for eliminating estrogen is vitamin B6, B9 and B12. Also licorice. If you've got high blood pressure, forget the licorice. I'm talking about the herb. Cabbage. The cabbage family contain a plant chemical called indoles. And indoles are a plant chemical that stimulate the pathway to eliminate excess estrogen. So number 1 is turning the tap off. Number 2 is stimulating the liver to release excess estrogen. And number 3 is the wild yam cream. The wild yam cream contains this plant chemical called diosgenin. And when that wild yam cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates this pathway that your body uses to make progesterone. And progesterone, as mother hormone, once progesterone is reinstated to where she should be, she plays a protective role on testosterone. She also brings estrogen back where it should be. And what I love about this wild yam cream, remember it's the herb. Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herb for the service of man. So you apply it to the inside of arms in the morning, maybe thighs in the evening. You apply it twice a day, 3 weeks a month. So if a woman's still menstruating, she applies it for these 3 weeks of the month. If a woman is no longer menstruating, she just chooses 1 week of the month where she does not apply the cream. How long should a woman apply it for? At least 1 year. We find women are starting to see results within the first month or 2. It might have taken 20 years to be out of balance. It won't take 20 years to get back into balance, but it might take a year. For some, it might take a year and a half. So you just listen. One lady said her blood loss halved in 1 month after starting to apply the yam cream. We've had ladies, the hot flushes go down. We've had ladies with osteoporosis start to get bone strength again. Isn't that good news? I've seen many, particularly women, come off their antidepressants. Because when you boost progesterone, you are boosting happy hormone. And I gave the story last night of that young woman who was diagnosed with depression post-traumatic stress disorder. Remember, after 2 weeks, she went home without it. Reject your title. I don't want that title. Do you know, we've only been given one title, and it's found in 1 John chapter 3, I think, verse 1. Behold, what manner of love the Father has given unto us, that we should be called the sons of God. That's our title. So reject that title. It's not necessarily you, and sometimes they get it wrong. And if you hadn't had the test, you wouldn't know. How do you know there's something wrong? Your body will tell you. It's very faithful. It's very faithful. And a very important part of being our own doctor is listening. And my aim in writing the book Sustain Me was that every home could have a handbook on natural remedies. So if there is a hiccup, you go to the index and look, maybe a simple water treatment, maybe some lifestyle adjustments, maybe a poultice, or maybe it's the yam cream. The yam cream that is on sale over near my book is Trelune. Trelune, tre meaning 3, lune meaning the lunar cycle, because that's how our body runs, on the cycle of the moon. So the wild yam cream has given hope to so many women, helped women to lose weight, helped women to be able to get off their antidepressants. Seen a few do that. They can't be stopped straight away. They have to be eased off slowly. And that brings us to the basic laws of health, which we looked at last night. We looked at their relationship to the mental aspects of the brain. Laws of health. So this is more water. Start drinking more water. Go to bed early. Have some sunshine. Do you know, the sunshine helps to balance the hormones going through the eyes to the pituitary gland and helps to reset in that way. When I was in the Bronx teaching a few years ago, a lady brought her 9-year-old daughter to me who just started menstruating. So I advised she go on the yam cream. Because if she's menstruating at 9, she's got a hormonal imbalance. How nice that that young girl at 9 years of age, from 9 to 10, can balance the hormone so she can cruise through her life as a woman. I met a 92-year-old lady who was on the wild yam cream for osteoporosis. Because remember, osteoporosis is usually, there's a few factors there, and in my book Sustain Me I go through them, but one factor often not considered is the hormonal imbalance. Because when you boost progesterone, that is the hormone that stimulates osteoblast cells, new bone cells. Yes, exercise is important. Yes, a nourishing diet is important. Yes, eliminating the stimulants that can leach the minerals out of the body. And in my next lecture, after our break, which we're about to have, we're going to be looking at the acid-alkaline balance in the body. Another class on the importance of correct balance. So the imbalance can be causing so many problems. What about a man? Men are not cyclic like women. In fact, Cheryl Selman, in her book Hormone Heresy, she gives this analogy on men and women. She said, men are like the sun. They rise in the morning, conquer the day, go down at night. But women are like the moon. Sometimes they're full, sometimes they're half, sometimes they're a slither. So women are cyclic. So women apply the cream twice a day for 3 weeks a month, whereas men, they don't have a break. They just apply it twice a day, every day. Why would a man do it? For low sperm count, for penile dysfunction. One man came to me and he said, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I just got to tell you, this cream puts lead in my pencil. He said, I'm not performing like I did when I was 20, but I'm better than I was. I've also seen men conquer prostate problems by applying the yam cream, boosting progesterone, because remember, mother hormone, she plays a protective role on her testosterone, her son. So when progesterone's boosted, then testosterone is once again brought back into its proper balance. And it's that imbalance in testosterone that can have an effect to cause the inflammation of the prostate. So men and women can certainly benefit from this cream. What if you go on the cream and you don't have an imbalance? Well, can you have too much happy hormone? I'd like to suggest we don't have enough. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Progesterone is the hormone that binds the molecules of the fetus to the lining of the uterus. So if a woman is having miscarriages, that tells me she's lacking progesterone. Can a woman take it while she's pregnant? She can, because remember, in pregnancy, the progesterone levels rise. In fact, one of my daughters, she told me she just applied the cream all through her pregnancy. Yes, it can be used in breastfeeding. It works with the needs of the body. Remember, that's what herbs do, but drugs don't. They just say, get out of my way, I've got a job to do. And that's why if someone is on various drugs and they start doing natural remedies, I say, you might need to have some regular tests, because the drugs are just going to keep doing it, even though you start healing, even though your levels start to balance, even though your blood pressure's coming down, that drug will just keep bringing it down, because drugs do not work with your body. The herbs do. That's why I love that verse. I think it's such a beautiful description. Psalm 104 verse 14. God gave herbs for the service of man, and they work with the needs of the body. Medicine calls it synergism. In my book Sustain Me, I have a section on women's health where I go into detail, even a little bit more, on what I've touched on this evening. And I've also got a chapter called Male Matters. And that talks about the male and the imbalances and the effect that I've also touched on tonight. But now it's time for a break. Yes, I'm sorry, I've gone 10 minutes over. We'll have a 20-minute break and we'll come back at 7 o'clock, and we're going to be looking at more imbalances and how to restore balance in acid alkaline. Thank you.
Cap.
There we go. Okay. Working.
Check. One, one, two, three, check.
Here we go.
Testing, 1, 2.
Okay, well, let's make our way back in. I know the break was a little bit short. We want to play one of our favorite songs. This song is about how we were not created to grow old. When we were created to live forever. But because of the results of sin on earth, our bodies do get older and we can't do the things that we used to do. But Jesus has promised that there is coming a day when we're going to get to be in a place where we're never going to grow old.
There will never shall I. Seems a land where grow, never grow, in a land where never grow, never grow, in a land where we'll never grow, never grow, in a land where we'll grow, never grow, never grow, in a land where we'll
When our work here is done, and our life is won, and our
troubles and trials are
our sorrows will end, and our voices shall play, and our
loved ones will meet on that shore. Never grow, never grow, in a land where we'll never grow old. Never grow, never grow, in a land where we'll never grow. In a land where we'll never
go to the toilet every day. Excuse me, can you do something? Our education system today is sadly deficient. Because I'd like to suggest to you that the most important education is looking after the body. Looking after the body that we live in, but we are not taught that. In fact, we're taught from a young age to give it over to someone else. And there are a lot of people, since 2020, that are now questioning medicine, questioning the very theories that it's based on. So they want to stop going to the doctor and getting the pink tablet, and now they want to get rid of and get the green tablet. But we have to get away from this system that gives our health over to someone else. Well, yes, the naturopath with the green tablet, that's certainly not going to harm the body as much as the doctor with the chemical pink tablet. But it's a totally different process, the body and healing, because the body is the only thing that has the ability to heal. In that book, The Ministry of Healing, on page 127, it says the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. That the physicians teach the people. Did you know that what the word physician means? Teacher. That restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. And that is a true statement. Yes, in a crisis, a drug may save a life, but drugs never heal. In fact, if the body heals on a drug, it's healed despite the drug. And that's why I prefer herbs, because herbs work with the body, they work with the body. If the body's been designed to heal itself, to me what makes the most sense is to work with those healing processes within the body. So the symptoms is your body saying, this is where I want to start. And then you go to a natural remedies encyclopedia, or you'll go to Sustain Me, and you find a simple water treatment or a herb or some lifestyle changes. And then what you're doing is you're listening. You're looking at your body's response. What is your body saying to you? Now, I mentioned earlier that my mother died at the age of 51, a cripple in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis. We'd given everything over to the doctor. And I have to tell you, they totally failed us. I'm not criticising the doctor. They do all they know. I'm criticising the system. And it's a system that is based on fear, and it's based on a theory. And the theory is we evolved, so we cannot heal. So we have to have a drug. Whereas God's system, it's not based on fear, it's based on faith. Faith in an incredible body that was created in the image of God to heal. And if it needs a bit of help, there are some simple water treatments, there are some herbs, some simple things that work with the healing powers of the body to bring about healing. But there's something else, and that's time. And I think I mentioned yesterday, my daughter Emma, when she was 5, she said, Mum, I'm going to grow up in a minute. Now, it took her another 10 years, but I think it's a very good illustration of her great faith. But when we get sick, don't we want to be better in a minute? But it takes time. It takes time, and just as it takes time for a baby to grow, it takes time to heal. And I'd also like to suggest that it takes time to get sick. And that's why it's important to listen. And if you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming. And when it starts screaming, it's doing damage. Have you ever been to a doctor who won't listen to you? It's very frustrating. Don't be that doctor. If the body speaks, we must respond. And the earlier we respond, the easier it will be to bring about healing. The problem is today, most people don't know what to do. And most people have lost the art of listening when their body speaks. And most people are like me, impatient. They want to be better right now. So when I broke my arm, total broke of the radius, out of place, yes, I went to hospital because I knew that it needed more than a poultice. How did I know that? It was so painful, and the pain did not ease, and it looked weird. So I was by the beach walking on the rocks with my grandchildren, not realising that this huge rock had a dip in it and it had water in it which had just dried, and when my foot touched it, my whole body went up in the air and slammed down. I think my bony hip hit that rock underneath. Oh, was that painful. So I went to hospital, and for 6 hours, I'm so glad, that God doesn't show us the future. Wouldn't that have been discouraging if I'd known I was going to sit there for 6 hours? Why did I sit there for 6 hours? Because the whole system is chocked up with people that don't know what to do. So I sat there, most terrible pain, listening. My fingers sore. I'll tell you what's sore. My little girl's got a sore elbow. My little boy's got gastric. And this little boy's running around. I'll tell you, if kids are sick, they don't run around, do they? And you know what the nurse gave? A sugar ice block. What's that going to do to gastric? Feed it. My heart's racing. I'm feeling dizzy. One lady said, I feel sick. And the nurse said, have you had anything to drink today? Oh, only a few. I couldn't believe it. This is what happens when it's free. People just come in for all sorts of... And I was confronted with two things. One was, they say we are an enlightened age. I think we're dumb. We don't even know how to look after our bodies. And the other thing that I was confronted with was this. Now I know why I do what I do. To teach people how to look after their bodies. Just the basics. Isn't this square one? I sat there thinking, I could fix him, I could fix her, I could fix her, I could fix her, I could fix her. My husband went to the nurse and said, my wife's in a lot of pain. You know what the nurse said? She's on the fast track. I'd hate to be on the slow track. I went in at 6 p.m. and at midnight, the orthopaedic surgeon saw me. An x-ray showed, yes, the radius was totally broken and out of place. I'm very thankful for the orthopaedic surgeon whose skill pulled it back into place. I'm very thankful for the pain-killing medication so I didn't feel him pull it back into place. But that was one day. And once he pulled it back into place, I didn't need the pain-killing medication anymore. You see, that deep, deep pain that would not ease, that told me something was serious wrong. So it's learning to listen to the body. One of the reasons the body is not working well in many cases is an imbalance. And what I want to look at is the pH imbalance. So what's pH? pH means potential hydrogen. The pH scale is an acid-alkaline scale. And pH means potential hydrogen because when you dissolve acid in a solution, it gives off hydrogen ions. When you dissolve alkaline in solution, it gives off hydroxy ions. On one end of the scale, we've got 14. On the acid end, we've got 0. And right in the middle, we have 7. That's neutral. neither acid nor alkaline, and all water should be neutral. But unfortunately, when it's got fluoride and chlorine in it, it comes a little acid. I was very glad to hear that Robert Kennedy Jr., I think he's taken fluoride out of your water, is that right? Yes. Yes. Well done. Well done. Blood has a reading on the pH scale, and blood's reading on the pH scale is between 7.35 and 7.4. It will always be within that range. There's no need to have the pH of your blood tested because it will always be in that range. Because if blood pH goes up to 8, that person will go into a coma and die of alkalosis. And if blood pH drops down to 7.22, that person will go into a coma and die of acidosis. So we can't have much variation there. But what an incredible body we live in, because there are systems in place to keep the pH where it should be. And one is your lungs. Have you noticed when you're climbing up a hill, your breathing changes? And the reason your breathing changes is because as you burn more glucose and oxygen, more carbon dioxide and a bit of lactic acid's given off. And what happens then is the blood pH starts to go a little acid. And so the brain says to the lungs, breathe deeply, because when we breathe deeply, we breathe in more oxygen, and oxygen alkalizes, and we're breathing out more carbon dioxide. And in that way, the lungs help to maintain the balance of pH in the blood. The other organ is the kidneys. And the kidneys do it in a fascinating way. So one kidney is about as big as our fist. And there are 1 million filtering units in one kidney. So let's magnify the filtering unit. And this is the little filtering unit it's also called a nephron. It's called the Bowman's capsule. And in that filtering unit, this is where the blood is filtered. Now you see that I have drawn there a little mesh shape. I have in one of my anatomy and physiology books at home a photograph of this Bowman's capsule. It's an incredible the photograph they can take of the human body when you consider there are 1 million of these in each kidney. The blood comes in, and the blood vessel coming in is bigger than the blood vessel coming out. And the reason for that is that builds up pressure in the little Bowman's capsule, making it more efficient at filtering the blood. And then the blood weaves around the tubules, but the filtrate that comes out, it weaves around these tubules, and here's the bladder, and then of course we urinate it out. In a 24-hour period, we filter 1,800 litres of blood. Now we don't have that much blood, but every 2 minutes, 1.2 litres is being filtered, and it filters out 180 litres of filtrate. But we don't urinate out 180 litres a day. We can very much thank God for that. Otherwise, we'd all be leaving the room every 10 minutes. No, we only urinate out 1.5 litres. And 1.5 litres would be what your 1.5 quarts, yeah? So there's a shortfall there. There's another 160 litres. What happens where the blood weaves around the tubules is there's a reabsorption. But by the way, there's the kidneys, and the little filtering units all sit on the edge, and the tubules basically come down like that. And then there's the ureter into the bladder, and there's the ureter from the other kidney. That's what it looks like. It's in this reabsorption here that pH is being balanced. So let's say the pH of the blood is getting too acid. Well, it is here that extra acid is dropped into the tubules to be urinated out. But if the pH of the blood goes to alkaline, then extra acid is pulled out of the tubules and back into the blood. So in that way, the kidneys are constantly monitoring and balancing, if necessary, the pH of the blood. That's why we don't have to worry about the pH of the blood, because the lungs and the kidneys are constantly keeping them within the range that they should be. No, the pH of the blood cannot change, but the pH of the cell can. So the pH of the cell, it should sit at approximately 6.5. Now that's a little acid, and there's a reason for that. The most acidic substance is sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid travels at the speed of light. The most alkaline mineral is calcium, and on the scale of speed, calcium doesn't even move. So very slightly acid means the speed of uptake of minerals, and also the speed with which all the little chemical reactions happen in our body. The hydroponic farmer, he's constantly monitoring the pH of the water, because if the pH of the water goes to acid, the roots burn. Because in hydroponic farming, the roots are sitting in the water. But if the water goes to alkaline, he doesn't get the speed of uptake of minerals out of the water and into the plant. If you've ever had a swimming pool, you have to test the pH of the water every day. If the water goes to acid, the pipes corrode. If the water goes to alkaline, then algae grows on the pipe. So more illustrations of how this precision balance is so important. Yes, if it's important in the swimming pool and important in the garden, how much more important in our body? Interesting to note that the farmer aims for a soil pH of approximately 6.5. The Bible says in Genesis 3:19, we come from dust, we go back to dust, we're dust. So the dust of the ground and the cell, very similar pH. Where does Coca-Cola sit? Yep, 2.6, it's a killer. I've got some shocking news for you. Some people drink it. It's true. It's true. Many are sick through ignorance, not realizing what they're doing to their body. Because unfortunately, so many people are told, oh, what you eat's got nothing to do with it. That just totally defies reason for me. That's like us getting some builders to build us a new house and say, oh, just use any old wood. Isn't that the same thing? And we know if they use any old wood, the house is not going to last very long. Same with the body. You put any old food in there, it's not going to be able to function, and it's going to start breaking down and then diagnosed with an illness. Well, how much more important it is now to give the right building materials to the body. On Friday, we're going to go on a journey through our gut. Interesting journey. We're going to start at the mouth and end up at the other end. It's a fascinating journey, and I'm going to show you it's not just what you eat, but it's also being mindful of giving your gut the right conditions so that you can break it down effectively. In a cellular pH of 5.5, this is where disease grows. This is where cancer grows. This is where fungal conditions thrive, in a 5.5 environment. Even though there's only the drop of 1 point, that drop of 1 point, because it's logarithmic, has quite a dramatic effect on the body. 60% less oxygen available at the cellular level at 5.5. Did you know that cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen? And so which I'm going to show you how this evening, just giving your body the conditions so we've got a better cellular pH, it's almost like cancer can't survive. And that's what we say to our guests that come to us with cancer. We say, we're going to teach you how to give your body the conditions so it's going to be very difficult for cancer to survive there. The reason I'm able to stand before you today and I'm not in prison is because I never make a claim, and they were hoping that I would. But I don't. I can't heal anyone. I'm just a teacher. I just teach people how to be their own doctors. And so, as you can see, there are many things that can affect the pH, and I'm going to go into more detail in that now. But you can also see by this the importance of the correct pH. And something that greatly affects them is lifestyle habits. Did you know that sunshine alkalizes? But if you lie out in the sun till you're the colour of a tomato, that creates an acid condition in the body. But many people, because the princes, now I mentioned the princes to you last night. I mentioned to you Psalm 146 verse 3, put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. Who are the princes? They're the authorities in the field, the authorities in government, the authorities in medicine, the authorities in nutrition, the authorities in herbs. It says, put not your trust in princes, because sometimes they get it wrong. And what the princes have been telling, or the authorities have been telling people in Australia, don't go out in the sun, you're going to get skin cancer. People have been living under the sun for centuries. How come we're only getting skin cancer now? Ian Wishart has written a very interesting book on vitamin D, and he shows how, and he's got a lot of research in there, sunscreens are causing basal cell carcinomas. Yes, because our body needs vitamin D to function. And they're also showing how vitamin D deficiency is contributing to the skin cancers. No, we need the sun. There's a bit of common sense there. When I go out to lie in the sun, I don't put sunscreen on. I take this thing on my wrist called watch. Yes, and I watch my watch. 10 minutes front, 10 minutes back, under the umbrella. You see, I've got what they call milky skin. And blue eyes, have to be a little bit more cautious. But if I do that twice a day for a week, I can have a very golden brown tan. And that tan is the best protection against sun exposure. Just the right amount of sun alkalizes. Too much sun, and unfortunately a lot of people don't get enough, because they're inside too much, on technology too much. Whereas in the old day, didn't people spend nearly half their day outside, maybe more? Use of water. Water alkalizes. Just the right amount of water alkalizes. I haven't met anyone that drinks too much water yet. Dr. Christopher said, I've got a sign if you're drinking too much water, put your head on the side, and if it comes out your ears. In other words, it's basically impossible to drink too much water. Most people don't drink enough. Dehydration can create an acid environment in the body. Sleep, lack of sleep. We've got a brain that can change itself. We've got a trainable brain. If you're not getting enough sleep, I've got some good news. You can train yourself back into better sleep habits. In my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole chapter on sleep, and it shows you how to do that. Not enough sleep can create an acid condition, because our body needs to be recharged, revitalized while we sleep. If you don't give the body enough sleep, that cannot happen. Stress, anxiety, that's probably not a surprise, can create an acid environment in the body. Trust in God. He is able Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us." And I'll give you a lovely alkaline verse. It's found Isaiah 26 verse 3. That God will keep him in perfect peace, he whose mind is stayed on God, because he trusts in God. Having an awareness that there is a power above ourselves, this creator God. And remember, he's a gentleman, he'll never force entry. So travelling as much as I do, I don't know what people do if they don't have faith in God. Sometimes it looks like the plane's not going to make it. It looks like I just trust him because I have proven he's worthy to be trusted. Because the old saying says, worry is blind. Isn't that true? Worry is blind and cannot discern the future. And as I showed you last night, we can choose. We can choose faith or fear. I choose to go to faith, not fear. Abstain. There are some things that must stop. So what I'm going to branch over now is show you some of the foods that cause an acid condition in the body and foods that have an alkaline efficient. So we get down, this is inhale. Yes, inhale through your nose, you'll get more oxygen and it alkalizes, but nutrition. So with nutrition and with abstain, I want to show you the foods that have an alkaline effect and the foods that have an acid effect. And you might be surprised on the alkaline side to see that number one is the humble lemon. And you might say, no, Barbara, it's acid. Well, yes, it is. It's acid in the stomach. And when we go on our journey through the gastrointestinal tract on Friday, you will discover that the only part of our body that's acid is the stomach. And I have never met anyone with too much acid. If someone says, I've got a very acid stomach, I say, oh, you must be digesting your food really well. Because dogs have 10 times the acid that we humans have, and they don't have heartburn or stomach ulcers. But have you seen what they eat? Oh, my daughter's dog, we knew he'd brought something into the yard because when you opened the back door, whoa, the smell. And there was the leg of a dead cow, and he's eating it. That just about killed us. Hydrochloric acid was designed by God to our frontline defence in the gastrointestinal tract. Hydrochloric acid not only breaks down food, but it also is antimicrobial, antibacterial. No, the stomach should be acid. It's the only part. And when you have lemon in your dressings, that helps with digestion. But when that lemon is broken down in the gastrointestinal tract and absorbed into the tissues, it is high in the alkaline minerals, so it has an alkaline effect in the tissues, but an acid effect in the stomach. What are the alkaline minerals? Sodium and potassium and calcium, magnesium and iron. These are the alkaline minerals. So any food that is high in these will have an alkaline effect on the tissues. So that brings us to number 2, which is dark green leafy vegetables. Dark green leafy vegetables are very alkalizing. And I'm so glad that Paul is here with his juice. Have you seen Paul's juice bar where you can get some lovely green juices there? I know some mothers have told me a great way to get greens into kids is green smoothies. Put a few bananas in there, a bit of coconut cream, a bit of maple syrup, throw the greens in and base it on coconut water maybe, and you give the child a plate of kale, they'll balk at it, but give them a green smoothie and And in it goes. So dark green leafy vegetables are very high in the alkaline minerals. And those alkaline minerals are doing much to help maintain the balance in the body, as you will see. Vegetables, all your vegetables have an alkaline effect. The dark green leafies are the most, though. But I'm going to give you a section of vegetables. We have a question mark with them because this group of vegetables contains a plant chemical called lectins. And we hear a lot about lectins today. In fact, Dr. Stephen Gundry wrote a book called The Plant Paradox, where he claims we shouldn't be eating many from the vegetable kingdom because they're so high in lectins. So I was not that interested in reading his book because I eat plants, I love plants, I enjoy plants. I've been a vegetarian for about 45 years now. And so I wasn't really interested in reading his book. But when I left America in 2022, don't ask me how I got out or how I even got into Australia, but God had a plan. You know, when God has a plan, he'll move. But when I did get to Australia, they treated me like I had the plague and put me in quarantine for 2 weeks. My husband said, I thought solitary confinement had been outlawed. Isn't it incredible what they got away with? I like what Greg said. I don't think they'll get away with that again. So many people look back and say, this was a scam. My husband calls it the great pretend. What do they also call it? The plandemic, the scandemic. But just before I left America, a lady put a book into my hand and it was The Plant Paradox. So I'm in solitary confinement, quarantine for 2 weeks. And there's a book in my room called The Plant Paradox. So I opened it and I got really annoyed at it because this guy claims that our taste buds took 10 million years to develop and the plants, I just close it. But you know what? When you've got nothing to do, I kept opening the book. God had a plan. He wanted me to read that book because I can now tell you the truth on lectins. And many people have been scared away from plants because of the lectins. You see, if the lectins get into the blood, they increase inflammation. But did you know that if you've got good, strong gut flora, they disarm the lectins? So I'm intrigued. What's God's plan on lectins? Because God created the plants and put them there. Did you know that lectins are high in unripe fruit? Notice that the birds know something. They don't eat it, do they? They only eat the fruit when it becomes red or it's ripe because there's no lectins there. So if we eat the fruit when it's ripe, we're not getting the lectins. But aren't lectins high in legumes? Yes, but if they're soaked, rinsed well and cooked well, that disarms the lectins. You know all that froth that comes to the top? Guess what? Lectins. I put mine under the tap and put the tap on and let all that froth come away. Rinse them well. I usually rinse them very well when I start cooking them and halfway through cooking them, because when you finish cooking them, you lose half your beans if you rinse them then. So halfway through I rinse them very well and then I put them with a lovely rich sauce. And we serve legumes every meal at our retreat and we do not have any complaints from people about guts, bloating with them. No, if they're prepared well, there's no lectins. And if your breads, your grains are made in the sourdough method, the cultured method, that disarms the lectins. I'm so glad to have Tristan here with his beautiful bread. In fact, when I'm traveling through the US, he just says, tell me where you're going to be, and the bread's there when I get there. Even after 6 weeks, if you put it in the toaster, it becomes soft again. And I have never tasted gluten-free bread like this. Gluten-free bread is usually pretty bad, but this is delicious. And so that there's no lectins in that bread because the culturing process. And did you know that he has got my sourdough starter? Because his wife, Sasha, her sister, in fact, Greg's wife, she came to Misty Mountain for 3 months about, 13 years ago. And she brought home my 100-year-old sourdough starter that a girlfriend got off an old German woman. And that's the starter that he uses in his company. Do you know the 2020 did well for Tristan? He was the only online bakery and his business exploded. That was a nice story. I love his business because it's just a family business, and I love supporting family businesses. So can you see that plants are nothing to fear as long as they're well prepared? And in her book, Nourishing Traditions, Sally Fallon, she goes into all the old traditional ways of cooking, of soaking, of rinsing, of slow cooking on the wood stove, of culturing using the sourdough method, and they all disarm the lectins. So I'm just very glad I read the book because I started to realise we don't need to fear lectins as long as they're prepared properly. But this group of vegetables I'm about to put here, they do have lectins, the tomato and bell pepper. But did you know that the Europeans traditionally de-seed and de-skin their tomatoes and bell peppers, and that takes the lectins away? Also eggplant, not quite as much, and the potato, not sweet potato. Sweet potato is a yam. This is the white potato. And what I have discovered, and I've seen this for years, that when people have arthritis, they're best stopping those nightshades because it can increase the inflammation. And after reading his book on the lectins, I started to realise it's the lectins. And because of drug medication that many people are taking or have taken, it slaughters the gut flora. And so they haven't got that protection in their gut flora. If the gut flora was good, it would disarm the lectins. But Dr. Stephen Gundry, he basically says, well, not many people have good gut flora, not many people prepare the food properly, so just don't eat vegetables. But you can, as long as it's prepared well. So that has a question mark. Some people can handle it, some people can't. My body says to me, don't touch the bell pepper. I cannot touch it, I cannot eat it at all. Why? I don't know. Sometimes you don't know why. You just got to listen to the body. My theory is that I have genes towards arthritis, and so the body says, keep away. So you know what I say? Okay. I keep away. I have a little potato most days because my husband's an Irishman, so every main meal must contain potatoes. I have eggplant now and then. I probably have a little tomato most days. An illustration of listening, because your body will tell you what you can and what you cannot do. It's important to listen. Millet and sorghum, they are 2 grains that are lectin-free. What's sorghum? Well, in Australia, they only ever used to grow sorghum for cows, and then they discovered it's gluten-free. And so now they grow it for humans, and you can buy sorghum flour. You see, gluten is a lectin. Millet is a lectin-free grain too, so obviously a gluten-free grain. And you can buy hulled millet. It makes a lovely porridge. But you need 1 For 1 cup of millet, you need about 4 cups of water. But a lot of mothers tell me they do it in the slow cooker overnight. So you wake up in the morning and there's a lovely soft porridge. Also, buckwheat. Buckwheat is another alkaline grain. And quinoa. Now, quinoa does have lectins, but the Aztecs, who traditionally were growing the quinoa, they rinse it. For you notice if you cook quinoa, it has a slight bitter taste. But if you rinse it, I rinse my quinoa about 6 times before I cook it. And that rinses the lectins away. There's no bitterness in it. Also, there are some legumes that are on the alkaline side, lima bean and lentils, no matter what colour, and soy. And as we looked at in our last lecture, that soy must be organic, non-GMO. And there are 2 nuts that are alkaline. One is the almond. Almond's called the king of all nuts because the highest in protein, it's the highest in iron, and it's alkaline. Brazil's another remarkable nut because Brazil nuts are phenomenally high in selenium, and selenium is required to convert iodine into thyroxine, so for the thyroid gland. You only need 5 Brazil nuts a day to get all the selenium that you need. Also, fruit. Fruit has a question mark. The reason fruit has a question mark is because it's so high in sugars. And if someone has a yeast problem in their body and they're having a lot of fruit, that can feed the yeast, which gives off acetic acid, lactic acid, uric acid. So what yeast does, it basically feathers its nest. It creates this 5.5 environment where it thrives. So if someone has a yeast presence, my suggestion is greatly reduce the fruit until you've actually eliminated the yeast from your body. Vegetables are high in fibre, they're high in minerals, and they're low in sugars. Whereas fruit is high in fibre, high in sugars, low in minerals. Do I eat fruit? Oh, I do, and I enjoy it. But it's not the main part of my diet. Also, all the seeds have an alkaline effect. So pumpkin seed, sesame seed, sunflower seed, chia. Spelt is another grain. And spelt is a wild hybrid from the original wheat. Let's look at the acid-forming side. And this is where we need to abstain. And these acid foods are high in phosphorus. These are the acid minerals, and sulfur and chlorine. They're the 3 acid-forming minerals. Refined sugar. Refined sugar is a pure acid. Because look where Coca-Cola sits, very acid. So refined sugar. Also meat. When meat breaks down, it has a high sulfur residue. In his book, The China Study, Dr. Colin Campbell, he shows how he could turn cancer cells on and off by the amount of meat and dairy that he was giving the rats. Now, there certainly is a big difference between raw organic cow's milk and the milk in the supermarket. There's definitely a big difference there. It appears that to be able to break down dairy, it needs to be in your heritage. So 5th generation dairy farmers, they seem to handle it very well. It's not in my heritage because I've never been able to handle dairy very well. In fact, I realise now that's why I used to get bronchitis every year, because of the milk. And wheat, the hybridized wheat of today, it was hybridized in the 1950s, and the hybridization of the wheat created a very complex protein or gluten structure. And that put it over on the acid side. Plus, most wheat is grown with superphosphate. It's also grown with glyphosate, so that also adds to the acidity. And by the way, they put folic acid on wheat today. Do you know folic acid is toxic? And what's every pregnant woman told to take? Folic acid. Pregnant women don't need folic acid, they need folate. Where do you get folate? From dark green leafy vegetables. Caffeine also has an acid effect, and you can see that again by where the Coca-Cola sits. Alcohol is not a food, but it certainly creates an acid environment. Tobacco is not a food, but it does create an acid environment. Drugs also have a highly acidic effect on the body. All your other grains, other than the grains on the alkaline side, all your other nuts, other than almond and Brazil, all your other legumes, other than lentil, lima and soy, have an acid effect. Now, to maintain this 6.5 environment, we should be having 20 to 30% acid foods, ideally from this section here, and 70 to 80% alkaline. When we maintain that ratio, that will keep that cellular pH at 6.5. And keeping that at 6.5 is a great protection against disease. We've seen many people conquer arthritis by eliminating the light shades and being mindful of going to a more alkaline diet. So the best way to do this is just pursue other grains, is eat lots of vegetables, yes, and eat some fruit. So it's just maintaining that balance. Do I ever test the pH? And how would you test it? Are your urine and your saliva? But I never test mine. I just aim for basically eating a mostly alkaline diet. It doesn't mean you can't eat rice. We need a little acid. It doesn't mean you can't eat chickpeas or kidney beans. It doesn't mean you can't eat macadamia nuts or pecans or walnuts. We need a little acid. But when you have a look at the average American diet, I think you'll agree with me, it's about 90% acid, 10% alkaline. Would you agree? No wonder we're so sick. And you can do so much to maintain a healthy body and to turn disease around by just going to a more alkaline diet. In my book, Sustain Me, I've got a chapter on arthritis where I define this. And also in my book, Self-Heal by Design, I have a chapter on the acid-alkaline balance in the body. Continuing with the laws, moderation in all good things. Moderation on this acid section here. Exercise. Just the right amount of exercise alkalizes. Too much exercise, doing 8 hours aerobic a day can cause too much lactic acid to be made, but most people are guilty of not enough exercise. So in this way, adhering to those basic laws of health and going to a more alkaline diet will help to maintain this 6.5 environment, which can help prevent disease and in many cases even give the body the conditions for healing from major diseases. So I'd like to thank you for your attention tonight. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to freeze up here. I'm going to bring a woolly jumper tomorrow. But thank you for your attention. And remember Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And there is a time to start giving the body the right conditions and going to a more alkaline diet. Before we leave, I'd like to say a word of prayer before we all leave for our homes and our beds. Thank you, Father in heaven, for what you've taught us this evening. Thank you so much for showing us the simple things that we can do, the simple lifestyle changes and dietary changes that we can give our bodies to get a better performance. And if we are not well, how the body can begin to heal when it's given the right conditions. Thank you for this knowledge. Thank you for this information. And thank you for the incredible body you gave us. And we pray these things tonight in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.